workshop. My name is Eric Friend, and I am the Executive Director of Data and Information Systems for the Oklahoma State Department of Education. I will serve today as the moderator, and we have others on the call that will be able to assist us with questions. We are here to talk about the new COVID reporting tool that has been developed jointly between the Oklahoma State Departments of Education and Health. This reporting tool is currently taking the place of the manual reporting processes that districts have been using up to this point to get COVID data to the county and state health departments in a secure and more efficient and automated way. This system was designed to reduce the effort on the county and state health departments to obtain data from districts so that they may focus on helping people instead of entering data, especially as daily pediatric cases continue to rise. To be clear, this is the way for school districts to report their COVID positive cases and close contact quarantines to the county and state health departments going forward. Reporting should start immediately through this system, and you should be reporting any and all close contact quarantine and COVID positive case data that has not already been reported to the health department. You may have questions throughout this presentation that we will not be able to answer. We are currently working on an FAQ document jointly with OSDH, the Oklahoma City County Health Department, and the Tulsa County Health Department to address all of these questions. This workshop has been designed to show you how to enter positive cases and close contact quarantines. Please submit all relevant questions through chat, as these questions will help us develop the aforementioned FAQ document and to enhance the application. I now have the pleasure of introducing the developer of the application that has been working both with Oklahoma State Department of Health and Oklahoma State Department of Education on this reporting tool. Dean Hupp. Dean?
Thank you, sir. I want to thank everybody for coming to our session today. We're going to go from beginning to end through all of the issues that you may face. Like Eric had mentioned, there may be some questions about process and workflow that are still being, addressed with some answers to frequently asked questions, but we'll try to answer everything that we can today. To start off with, all district superintendents should already have access to it. That was granted last week, I think on Wednesday. And if you come into your single sign-on, log in, and your landing page, you should see a state infection reporting system. Now, I've given myself a bunch of roles so I can test, but the main role you'll have is the district user role with your district in it as well. I'm going to jump in at a system admin level. This is production, but I just want to show you some things that are a little bit easier to show you in production. I'm going to get out and get back into a development/test environment for you. So as we come in, you can see that you're going to have a landing page. As I've been looking at stats and monitoring the database, there have been over 250 districts already log in and take a look at it. Not all of those have entered data, but over 250 have logged in and actually looked at the system. So when you come in, as you start putting data in, it's actually going to have all of these items automatically displayed for you. I thought I'd run through real quick and just kind of explain them a little bit. So current isolations are how many students and staff you currently have on isolation that aren't allowed to be on property because they're either isolated, because they're isolated. And then current quarantines are how many students and staff are quarantined until their quarantine end dates and shouldn't be on property. Returning isolations is the number of people who can return today. Also, by the way, this little info box in the upper left corner, if you click that, it will give you a list of those people for your district. Before we get to that, we're actually adding a report as well that lists the current isolations, the current quarantines, and then it's going to give you the returning isolations for today, the returning quarantines for today, and also the returning isolations and return quarantines for tomorrow. And you can run that for any school site or your district as a whole. That should probably be in there by Wednesday, Thursday-ish. I'm working with a couple different districts on reports that they think would be helpful for everybody. And again, those should be up there this week for your use. The new daily isolations is how many new cases have been added today and how many new quarantines have been added today. Now, one of the things you're going to see is over on the left, there's tests. So this might cause some confusion, which is why I want to address it. The test is if you're doing the BinaxNOW on-site testing, and there's only about 10 districts right now. I think we're going to expand that. But if you're not doing BinaxNOW on-site testing, you can basically ignore this test menu. You will never have to use it. Once you start doing BinaxNOW testing, if you do, then you would actually enter all those tests, positive and negative, in this menu right here. And then these last two columns, of course, would then reflect any data that you did enter in that test menu, the new positive tests and then just total tests. One of the reasons I wanted to show you this screen is because there's lots of good data, and I wanted to make sure that you saw how to use this graph. So this is basically for you, and it's very flexible. So it's obviously going to be, this is a state level you're going to see, but it's going to be filtered for your district as you log in. If you click into the different fields here, you just click in that and it'll immediately pop up a list of different kinds of stats that you can graph. So we could go to staff total, we can go student total. Again, you can pick as many of these as you want. And then you just hit refresh graph and it'll actually go ahead and plot them all together. Also, you can come change the date range, and then of course it'll plot for that date range. So very, very neat stuff. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and you're going to be able to get a lot of detailed things. You can also filter. Your district would already be defaulted in here when you're logged in at the district level, but you could also default it and change the filter to graph by any of your school sites as well. So again, nice review screen for you. It kind of gives you a spot in time every time you log in. It's like your executive dashboard of, you know, basically what the current standing of your district is. Now I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and get into a test environment. Just give me a little bit of a second here. It's coming up. And almost there. Sorry for the delay here. It always takes a little bit to switch between these. And I did have it ready ahead of time, but it went ahead and timed out, so I'm having to redo it all. So sorry about that. Okay, and now we should be good to go here. So again, as we're getting in here, if you're not doing the BinaxNOW testing on site at your district, you will never, ever have to use the test menu. So just keep that in mind so that it doesn't, you don't get things confused there. All right, let me share the screen. Okay, so when you come in, you're going to see a screen that looks exactly like this. If it's the first time, or if you haven't logged any data in, these will all be zeros. I'm going to agree to that message. You can see there's a little bit of test data from just some small stuff that's been entered. That's why I wanted to show you the other screen, because it had much, much more data. As we mentioned, tests, you don't need to worry about that unless you're doing the BinaxNOW testing. If you are, and you're interested in that, the session tomorrow is for the people who are doing that. So you'll want to tune in tomorrow as well. So I'm going to go to the cases. And then this screen lists all of the cases for the given district. Looks like our test environment's running a little slow there. Sorry about that. We actually have all the patients. You shouldn't have to use this screen very often. It may be more just to reference things or maybe update some data, but it is there for you. Administration is, again, a screen that's going to have very, very few options. In fact, at the district level, it really only has one option, which is to enter the CLIA number for the current user. The CLIA number, I don't want you to get confused with that either. That goes with the test menu. This is for people who are doing that Binax Now testing. They have to have a CLIA number. So again, if you're not doing the Binax Now testing, don't worry about the test menu. Don't worry about the administration menu. The help menu, this displays common definitions that are used in the system that have all been updated and sent to us by the health department. And it also has 2 guides. Now, if you're out there now, you're going to notice there's only 1 guide, and there was a small difference between development and production. That's already been fixed. So if you click on the Binax Now help guide, because you're doing that Binax Now testing, you can download that. And also, if you're just all the general users, there's an actual help document out here that will just give you the basics of what we're reviewing today, so that it would be a good reference for you as well. I just wanted to show you those things. I was trying to get an update in by lunch that fixed some of the known issues. In fact, it fixed all of the known issues. But I had quite a few calls after our last session, and unfortunately have not got to any programming tasks. But that will get done shortly after this session, tonight at the latest. So now that we've reviewed some of those menus, I'm going to go back to cases. And now that we're in the case menu, this is where your staff is going to spend most of its time. Now, again, I'm assuming that probably the superintendents aren't going to be entering the data, which means that there's probably a nurse entering the data, or of course, other staff could be entering it. So they're going to need access. So what we've done is we've given access to all the district superintendents. For the other staff in your district, you would need to grant them access. So that should be pretty straightforward. So in order to add a case, pretty straightforward, we'll hit add case. So as you come in here, your district's going to be defaulted, and then it's going to have the second thing that needs to be entered is the actual student or staff. So what we've done is we've preloaded all the student data and all the certified staff data. Right now, the support staff is not preloaded. At the time, I was thinking that it would cause more problems and confusion by loading it because we didn't have phone numbers or addresses for those people. Based on the first session, though, it seems like there's some things I can do that will help you out there. And I'm going to make some changes, and hopefully tomorrow, when you come in, it will actually have support staff loaded as well. But I'm going to have to do some changes to account for the fact that a lot of that data is missing. But you should have the support staff loaded as well tomorrow. I'm going to hit Find Student Staff, and you basically toggle between a student or a staff member using the little toggle buttons. And again, it's all preloaded with your district's data. So we can come in here, I think it's person 5 and pre-kindergarten, and hit search, and then the person comes right up. You would be able to search all your grades for any particular person or any particular student you want. As you're doing this, keep in mind, it's going to make you put in last name or date of birth and the grade. Again, what we're trying to do is limit the number of records that come back. Not so much of an issue in the small schools, but in the bigger schools, it definitely would be an issue. If you just type in Smith and hit search, for instance, I tried it in Oklahoma City, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids came back. So by doing 3 different criteria there, basically the district, last name or birth date, and the grade, we're trying to limit the number of records that come back so that it stays responsive for everybody. You hit select there, and then you'll see it just pre-populates all the data. The same thing goes for the staff as well. It'll pre-populate everything that it has. If you see that something that's pre-populated is wrong, you can actually go straight in and edit the patient. So you can go straight in and edit the information and update it. Probably won't need to do that too often, but again, I just wanted you to realize that you can do that. In some cases, the student may be missing, maybe it wasn't quite in there in a way that we could pull it back for your school. Maybe it hasn't been updated. There's a few scenarios that would cause that, but again, 99% of the students are loaded. But if you don't find your student, you can just add them. So you can actually go in and add the student from scratch. You should not have to do that very often. And actually, After tomorrow, you shouldn't have to do that with the staff as well. But what you will need to do, because all the addresses for support staff are missing and all the phone numbers are missing, after you go in and pull back a support staff member, you will need to edit it and then update this information down here that will be blank, because that will have to be updated before it lets you save it. But it still will speed it up a little bit. So again, 99% of students are in there. Over 90% of certified staff's already in there, and we'll get the support staff in there for you tomorrow morning. Again, that required a few adjustments to make that work. As far as the contact tracer, whoever is doing the contact tracing at your school or school site is basically who you put in there. And then this is just going to record who does that. Again, it should be pretty straightforward. In most cases, it's a pretty well-defined thing that's happening there as far as that contact tracing. You'll put in the case type, which is a positive test or a close contact quarantine. We'll go ahead and put in a positive test. And then you cycle through and just enter the positive test date, the exposure date. Right now in the system, by the way, you can see that we are trying to react very, very quickly. I'm going to digress a little bit here. One of the things you'll notice is we've already made 2 updates and fixed all known issues between Wednesday when we turned it on for the districts and basically by the weekend. There's going to be another update made tonight. I was shooting for lunch, but like I said, it just didn't quite get there with some of the calls that were coming in. And one of the things that actually came back from the morning meeting is we had, this is, if you go look out there right now, this is called, I think, last date on property. And just based on the morning meeting and some discussions we had afterwards with some people, I think exposure date is a much better terminology for that. So I did update that while we were on the phone with them. So when we make this update tonight, that'll be exposure date, which would be the last date they were on property if they were on the property. But now by changing it to exposure date, it also makes it more obvious what to do if, for instance, you were on Christmas break and a person was exposed then. So now you know that that field really is for either one of those things, whereas before it was unclear what to do if they were exposed and they weren't on school property. So that clarifies that a little bit. As you're going through these dates at the bottom, the dates at the bottom get auto-calculated, the begin contagion date, isolation end dates, quarantine end dates, and then the house quarantine end date. You'll notice, by the way, that, you know, with the new guidelines of 10 days from 14, that you can also cut that down to 7 if you've had a negative test. So if you're on close contact quarantine with a negative test, if you click that button, it'll actually reduce that by 3 days. Oh, forgot the site. Let me just stick that in real quick and we'll save it. And so now that's been added and it's this record right here. So let's say we made a mistake, edit it. I meant to make that a close contact. Again, you just change it. You could update it. Pretty straightforward. We can edit it again and let's say, oh, wait, they had a test. So now you can see if you update that, it cuts 3 days off that quarantine end date if you could say that they have a negative test on file. So pretty straightforward stuff as far as adding a case. And again, we can come back and add another one. And we'll just do another find student staff. And I think there's person 3, pre-kindergarten. I think there's another person. Yep, there they are. We'll select them. Pretty straightforward stuff there. And we'll do a close contact quarantine from the beginning this time. And we can even come in and again, change the date. So we can say positive test date there. It got reported to me on the 6th. The system's onset was the 5th. Last exposure date was the 5th. And close contacts were told to quarantine on the 6th. And again, all those dates fill in automatically and we hit save. And it adds it. So had I not been talking, that could have been added in about 30 seconds. It would have been really straightforward to add that. And we've tried to make that process as quick as possible. We obviously realize that you've got a lot going on right now. And one of the things I want to stress while we're talking today is that I want to be available to you to make any changes that you need in the system. I want it to be as, I guess, is help you be productive as you possibly can. We actually got a couple of real good ideas from the morning session that we're going to be implementing. And again, I'm going to give out my email address and phone number. And if you're having problems at night using it and you need help, you can text or call. It'll be a cell phone, so you can get a hold of me anywhere I'm at. If you're on the weekend and you need to get a hold of me, text or call. You know, we're here to help you, and we're going to work really hard to react quickly to any issues or problems that you have. Now, having said that, I think it'll probably take a week or so, like we talked previously, to really work through all of the little issues and get all the coordination between the different agencies flowing, you know, in a consistent, nice manner. But I think it will happen very, very quickly. So again, if you're experiencing frustrations, just let me know, and we'll help you out with that and do everything we can to reduce them for you. And we want to be really, really reactive. So I really do truly mean that. Like I said, I've taken like 11 calls just since the morning session, and we resolved most of the issues. One of the common issues that I think we're seeing right now, common as in maybe 10 to 15% of the people, is we've tried to make this so that it's very big and easy to read. We didn't want screens with a bunch of really tiny text on them. So that it was easy for the entry people. Now, in some cases, if you're on a really tiny monitor, like a little tiny laptop, the screen's actually a little bit too small to display it the way we made it. Now, I'm going to be making some changes this week to accommodate that. But until then, what you can do is in the upper right corner of almost all browsers, there's a little dots or system settings or, you know, whatever they want to call it for the particular browser you like to use, but they're always in the upper right corner. And then you can go in and you'll see a zoom function. So if you just use that zoom function and you can zoom out, I guess you would say, and then it'll make it fit on your screen. So that's a real simple thing you can do, and it will save you a lot of frustration. So for instance, if you hit add case, one of the common things that I was dealing with today is it would be like displayed like this. And you'll notice that the buttons at the bottom aren't showing, right? And so it's, you know, it's a little frustrating. You'd have to scroll. It's just kind of annoying. But all you have to do is come up here and just zoom out until you can see the buttons, and then you can use it just fine and you won't have any issues. Like I said, that's something we're going to be updating so that it displays more consistently on those smaller laptops and smaller monitors. But I did want to mention that because it will save you some frustration. So again, add cases. Oh, one more thing, close contact quarantines. What I was showing you is if there's only 2 or 3 close contact quarantines, it's easier just to manually add them than it is to go in and do an automated thing. The contacts button is something that we've added that is going to let you basically go in and pick well, the student will be picked obviously already, but it'll let you pick the period and then show you all the students in that class. And then you can just select them all and then hit save, and it'll actually just save all those close contacts all at once. I was hoping to have that deployed at lunch like I had mentioned earlier, but I just had not gotten off the phone since our last session, so it will have to be tonight. But that's going to really speed things up. I was also going to try, we're in test, but the actual student data is real for every district, that this would hit all that student data is real. So I don't want to pull it up in our session, and I didn't have time to get in there and change all the names around so that it was, you know, everything was hidden, and which I wanted to do and intended to do, but again, it just never really got off the phone. But anyway, it's really straightforward. You go into contacts, you pick the period for the student, and then it just gives you a list of kids. You select them and you hit save, and boom, it just adds them all. So real straightforward, and that will be out there tonight as well to automate the entry of a lot of close contact quarantines. Having gone over everything, I know that was kind of quick, and I tried to highlight all the main things that you would need to know I'm going to turn it over to Eric to moderate some of the questions and answers that I'm sure have been coming in.